The year 2047 had dawned as the pinnacle of human achievement. Towering cities brushed the heavens, and artificial intelligence governed the minutiae of daily life with impeccable precision. Pollution was a distant memory, eradicated by nanotechnology that also nurtured the Earth's reborn flora and fauna. The stars had become mere stepping stones, with humanity establishing colonies on Mars and beyond. Yet, amidst this utopia, the seeds of an unprecedented calamity were quietly sown. Dr. Kaelen Voss stood before the massive curved wall of holographic screens in the central astronomy hub of Neo-Tokyo. His sharp eyes, the color of molten amber, scanned the streams of data cascading down the displays. The room buzzed with the soft hum of supercomputers and the murmurs of scientists engrossed in their work. It was an ordinary day of monitoring the cosmos until an alert flashed across the central screen. The unidentified object on a collision course with Earth intoned the calm, synthesized voice of the AI. The room fell silent, every eye turning toward the alert. Kaelen's fingers danced across his console, bringing up the data on the object. It was an asteroid, roughly 10 kilometers in diameter, previously cataloged as 4598 Pallas. It had been deemed a non-threat, its trajectory safely bypassing Earth. Until now, Kaelen's heart quickened as he initiated a series of calculations. The asteroid's new trajectory was a direct hit, with an estimated impact in less than 2 weeks. He didn't need the AI to tell him the catastrophic potential of such an event. The screens around him exploded with activity as the rest of the team began their own analyses, but Kaelen's mind was already racing ahead. "Send an urgent report to the Global Defense Council," Kaelen ordered, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "We need all available data on this asteroid, and I want continuous updates." As the team worked frenetically, Kaelen delved deeper into the asteroid's characteristics. It was unusually dense, and preliminary scans hinted at metallic anomalies embedded within its structure. He tapped into the international network, connecting with observatories around the world to gather more data. Hours passed in a blur. Kaelen scarcely noticed the sun setting beyond the massive windows of the hub. His focus was unrelenting, piecing together the puzzle that was 4598 Pallas. As the data poured in, a troubling pattern emerged. The asteroid's sudden change in trajectory was not natural. It had been deflected, deliberately aimed at Earth. "Kaelen, you need to see this," called out Leora, his closest colleague and a brilliant astrophysicist. She waved him over to her console, where a series of graphs displayed the asteroid's trajectory changes over the past month. This wasn't just a random deflection. It's too precise. Kaelen frowned, leaning in to examine the data. Someone or something redirected it. But why? Before Leora could respond, the room's main screen shifted to display an incoming transmission from the Global Defense Council. The face of Director Aidan Raskin, stern and grave, filled the screen. "Dr. Voss, we have confirmed your findings. The deflection of 45 and 98 Pallas was an act of aggression. We have reason to believe it involves extraterrestrial technology." His words hung heavily in the air, the weight of their implications settling over the room. Kaelen took a deep breath. "Director, we need to prepare for impact, evacuate the major cities, and activate all defensive measures. And we need to find out who did this and why." Raskin nodded. "Agreed. We are mobilizing all resources. I trust you and your team will continue to lead the scientific analysis. The fate of our planet may very well depend on it." The transmission ended, and Kaelen turned back to his team. "You heard him. We have work to do. Let's start by analyzing the metallic anomalies in the asteroid. There might be a clue there." As the team plunged back into their work, Kaelen couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled in his chest. The world as they knew it was about to change forever, and somewhere out there, an unknown enemy was watching, waiting for the chaos to unfold. The days passed in a frenetic blur as the world mobilized to face the impending disaster. Governments coordinated massive evacuation efforts, relocating millions from the predicted impact zone. Military forces prepared for the aftermath, while scientists and engineers worked around the clock to understand the asteroid's mysterious origins. In the central astronomy hub of Neo-Tokyo, Dr. Kaelen Voss and his team remained at the epicenter of these efforts, their focus unyielding. On the eve of the asteroid's arrival, the sky over Neo-Tokyo was a tapestry of vibrant colors, the last sunset before the storm. Kaelen stood on the observation deck, looking out over the city. The usual hum of life had been replaced by an eerie silence, the streets below deserted. He felt a profound sense of responsibility, knowing the knowledge they had gathered would shape the fate of millions. A soft chime from his wrist communicator broke his reverie. "Kaelen, we have final confirmation," came Leora's voice. "The impact site is locked in. It's going to hit the Pacific, just off the coast." Kaelen nodded, acknowledging the inevitable. "I'll be right there." He turned and hurried back into the hub, the tension palpable as the team prepared for the final hours. In the control room, a massive holographic display showed the trajectory of 4598 Pallas. The asteroid was a bright red dot, hurtling toward Earth with terrifying speed. The room was filled with a mix of scientists, military personnel, and government officials, all eyes fixed on the screen. "How long until impact?" Kaelen asked as he approached Leora. "Less than 3 hours," she replied, her voice tinged with both determination and fear. "We've run every possible simulation. There's no way to stop it." Kaelen took a deep breath. "Then we focus on what comes next. Evacuation status?" A military officer stepped forward. "Major cities along the Pacific Rim have been evacuated. Coastal defenses are on high alert. We have contingency plans for dealing with the fallout." Kaelen nodded, appreciating the efficiency. "Good. Let's make sure we're ready for anything. This asteroid isn't just rock and metal. It's carrying something we don't fully understand." As the minutes ticked down, a tense silence settled over the hub. Everyone was acutely aware of the enormity of what was about to happen. Then, the moment arrived. "Impact in 10 seconds, announced the AI, its voice unwavering. The countdown began, each second a heartbeat echoing through the room. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The screens lit up with a blinding flash as 4598 Pallas slammed into the Pacific Ocean. The force of the impact was beyond comprehension, sending shockwaves rippling across the globe. A massive plume of water and debris shot into the atmosphere, visible from space. For a moment, there was silence, the world holding its breath. Then the aftermath began. Tsunamis, hundreds of feet high, raced toward the coastlines, while earthquakes shook the very foundation of the Earth. The skies darkened as a colossal cloud of debris and alien spores spread, casting a shadow over the planet. Kaelen watched in grim silence as the devastation unfolded on the screens. "Activate all emergency protocols," he ordered. "We need to monitor the spread of those spores." As the team scrambled to respond, Kaelen's communicator buzzed again. It was Director Raskin. "Kaelen, what are we dealing with?" Kaelen quickly summarized the situation. "The spores are spreading rapidly. We don't yet know their full effects, but initial reports indicate they are causing severe mutations in both plant and animal life." Raskin's face was grave. "We need answers, Dr. Voss. The world is looking to you and your team. Find out what those spores are and how we can stop them." The transmission ended, leaving Kaelen to face the daunting task ahead. He turned to his team, his voice firm. "We have a new mission. We need to understand these spores and find a way to neutralize them. Our survival depends on it." As they delved into the data, analyzing samples and running tests, Kaelen couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding. The asteroid had been just the beginning. The real challenge was only just beginning, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The sun rose on a world irrevocably changed. Kaelen Voss and his team had worked through the night, their exhaustion kept at bay by the urgency of their task. The impact of 4598 Pallas had unleashed a torrent of destruction, but it was the alien spores that now posed the greatest threat. As daylight revealed the transformed landscape, the true extent of the catastrophe began to unfold. Neo-Tokyo, like many cities across the Pacific Rim, had been evacuated, leaving behind an eerie silence. Kaelen stood at the edge of the city's perimeter, now a makeshift command center, watching as drones surveyed the damage. The once bustling metropolis was now a ghost town, the streets empty and the skies filled with a strange luminescent haze from the spores. "Kaelen, we've got preliminary results from the spore analysis," Leora called out, her voice crackling through the communicator. "You need to see this." Kaelen hurried back to the control room, where Leora and a few other scientists were huddled around a holographic display. The image showed microscopic views of the spores, their structures intricate and otherworldly. "These spores are unlike anything we've ever seen," Leora began. "They're not just passive particles. They're actively seeking out organic material to latch onto and mutate." Kaelen studied the display, noting the rapid cellular changes in the samples. "How fast are they spreading?" Leora's expression was grim. "Faster than we anticipated. They're highly adaptive and seem to be using the atmosphere to propagate. We need to find a way to stop them, and quickly." As they continued to analyze the data, an alarm sounded, indicating an incoming transmission. It was from one of the remote observation teams stationed near the impact site. "Dr. Voss, we have a situation," the team leader reported. "We're seeing strange activity in the wildlife. Mutations are happening at an accelerated rate, and the creatures are becoming highly aggressive." Kaelen's mind raced. "Can you send us visual feeds?" The screen split to show live footage from the observation team's drones. What had once been a serene forest was now a chaotic landscape of twisted, mutated flora and fauna. Trees pulsed with an eerie, bioluminescent glow, and creatures that should not exist roamed the area, their forms grotesque and nightmarish. "We need to contain this," Kaelen said, turning to his team. "If these mutations spread to populated areas, it will be catastrophic." As the team worked on containment strategies, another urgent call came in, this time from the Global Defense Council. "Kaelen, we need a status update," Director Raskin demanded, his image appearing on the main screen. "We're dealing with aggressive, rapidly mutating spores," Kaelen explained. "They're transforming the environment and wildlife at an alarming rate. We're developing containment measures, but we need more time." Raskin's expression was stern. "Time is a luxury we don't have. Every hour counts. Focus on finding a way to neutralize these spores. The world is counting on you." The transmission ended, leaving Kaelen and his team under even greater pressure. They resumed their work, examining every possible angle for a solution. As the hours passed, fatigue began to take its toll, but they pushed through, driven by the enormity of their tasks. Late in the afternoon, Kaelen's assistant, Dr. Zara Cade, approached with a new set of data. "Kaelen, I think I found something. Look at this." Zara's analysis showed a potential weakness in the spore structure, a vulnerability to a specific frequency of ultraviolet light. "If we can amplify this frequency, we might be able to disrupt the spore's ability to propagate." Kaelen's eyes lit up with hope. "This could be it. Let's run simulations and see if we can develop a delivery system." As the team rallied around this new lead, Kaelen felt a renewed sense of determination. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but they finally had a glimmer of hope. With the world on the brink, they had no choice but to press forward, united in their fight against the alien menace. As night fell, the first test of the ultraviolet delivery system was prepared. Drones equipped with the modified lights took to the skies, their beams cutting through the spore-laden air. The team watched anxiously as the initial results came in, hoping that this would be the breakthrough they desperately needed. The battle against the spores had begun, and with it, the fight for humanity's survival. The ultraviolet light tests had shown promising results, slowing the spread of the spores and neutralizing some of their effects. It was a small victory, but in the face of overwhelming odds, any glimmer of hope was a welcome reprieve. Yet, it was clear that a more comprehensive solution was needed. The spores were relentless, and their origins remained a mystery that needed unraveling. Dr. Kaelen Voss gathered his team for a briefing in the control room. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of determination and anxiety. On the central holographic display, a map of the impacted regions pulsed with red markers indicating areas of severe spore activity. "We've bought ourselves some time, but it's not enough," Kaelen began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Our best chance lies in understanding the alien technology embedded in the asteroid. We need to reach the remnants of the space elevator and access its data core. It might hold the key to stopping the spores for good." Leora stepped forward, highlighting their planned route on the map. "The journey will be dangerous. The area around the impact site is highly unstable and will likely encounter more mutated creatures. We need to move quickly and carefully." Kaelen nodded. "We'll assemble a small, skilled team. Our goal is to infiltrate the space elevator's ruins, retrieve the data, and return. This mission is crucial for our survival. The team was chosen: Kaelen, Leora, Dr. Zara Cade, and 2 military specialists, Captain Arden Riker and Lieutenant Mira Silva. Each brought unique skills necessary for the mission's success. As they prepared to depart, Kaelen couldn't help but feel a heavy weight of responsibility. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. The team set out at dawn, their vehicle cutting through the desolate landscape that once bustled with life. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the distant cries of mutated creatures and the hum of their transport's engines. They passed through abandoned cities, the remnants of civilization standing as stark reminders of what was at stake. Hours into their journey, they encountered their first major obstacle, a massive chasm created by the asteroid's impact. The ground was split open, with jagged edges and a river of molten lava far below. Kaelen consulted the map, tracing an alternate route. "We'll have to detour through the Forest of Echoes," he said, pointing to a dense, mutated forest on the map. "It's longer, but it's our only option." The team proceeded, entering the forest with caution. The air was thick with spores, and the trees glowed with an eerie bioluminescence. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, and the mutated flora and fauna were unlike anything they had ever seen. As they advanced, the forest came alive with movement. Strange, mutated creatures watched from the underbrush, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The team moved in a tight formation, weapons at the ready. Suddenly, a group of mutated wolves lunged from the shadows, their bodies twisted and grotesque. "Defensive positions," Captain Riker commanded, opening fire with his energy rifle. The wolves were fast and vicious, but the team's coordinated efforts held them at bay. Leora used a portable UV light emitter to drive the creatures back, its beam causing them to recoil in pain. The skirmish was brief but intense. As the last of the wolves retreated, the team regrouped, catching their breath. "This place is a nightmare," Zara muttered, her eyes scanning the surrounding forest. "We need to keep moving." They pressed on, the weight of their mission driving them forward. The forest gradually gave way to open terrain, and in the distance they saw the towering remnants of the space elevator. It was a haunting sight, a colossal structure now leaning precariously, its upper sections lost to the clouds. "We're almost there," Kaelen said, a mix of relief and determination in his voice. "Stay alert, the hardest part is yet to come." As they approached the ruins, they encountered more signs of the asteroid's impact. Craters dotted the landscape, and strange, crystalline formations jutted from the ground. The air was thick with tension as they reached the base of the space elevator. The entrance was blocked by debris, but a small opening allowed them to squeeze through. Inside, the air was stale, and the corridors were dark and foreboding. The team activated their lights, casting eerie shadows on the walls. "We need to find the main control room," Leora said, consulting a schematic of the structure. "It's deep within the complex." They moved cautiously through the ruins, aware that danger could lurk around every corner. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of the damaged structure. Finally, they reached the control room, a massive chamber filled with shattered equipment and darkened screens. Kaelen approached the central console, brushing away debris to access the controls. "Let's hope this still works," he muttered, powering up the system. The console flickered to life, displaying a series of alien symbols and data streams. Zara stepped forward, her expertise in xenotechnology proving invaluable. "I can interface with this. Give me a moment." As she worked, the team stood guard, their senses heightened. Time seemed to stretch as Zara decoded the alien technology. Finally, she let out a triumphant gasp. "I've got it! There's a data core deep in the structure. It contains everything we need." Before they could celebrate, the ground shook violently. The structure groaned, metal twisting under the strain. "We need to move now," Captain Riker barked. "This place is coming down." With Zara leading the way, they raced through the corridors, navigating the crumbling ruins. The data core was located in a heavily fortified section, and accessing it required bypassing multiple security protocols. Zara worked quickly, her fingers flying across the console. "Got it!" she exclaimed, retrieving the data core. "Let's get out of here." The team retraced their steps, the structure collapsing around them. They burst out into the open, just as the space elevator gave a final, thunderous groan and collapsed in a cloud of dust and debris. Breathing heavily, Kaelen held the data core tightly. We did it. Now let's get this back to the hub and see if it holds the answers we need. As they began their journey back, the enormity of their task weighed heavily on them. The data core was a beacon of hope, but the battle was far from over. The spores continued to spread, and the world teetered on the brink. But for the first time, they had a chance to fight, tee back, and reclaim their future. And with that, the journey towards humanity's salvation truly began. The journey back to Neo-Tokyo was fraught with tension. The team carried the precious data core, their only hope of understanding and stopping the alien spores. As they navigated the treacherous terrain, the mutations in the environment became increasingly aggressive, a stark reminder of the urgency of their mission. They moved cautiously through the mutated landscape, their senses on high alert. The twisted flora seemed to pulse with a malevolent life, and the air was thick with the spores that had already begun to transform the world. Every step was a battle against the hostile environment. "Stay sharp," Captain Riker commanded, his voice low. "We're not out of the woods yet." As they advanced, the team encountered more mutated creatures. The once familiar wildlife had been transformed into grotesque, nightmarish versions of their former selves. Mutated deer with bioluminescent antlers and razor-sharp claws stalked the underbrush, while insect swarms with iridescent wings buzzed menacingly overhead. The team moved in a tight formation, weapons at the ready. Kaelen kept his eyes on the data core, its weight a constant reminder of the stakes. They needed to get it back to the hub, analyze its contents, and find a way to neutralize the spores before it was too late. A sudden rustling in the underbrush snapped them to attention. Riker signaled for silence, and the team froze, weapons aimed at the source of the noise. From the shadows emerged a creature unlike anything they had encountered, a massive, mutated bear with glowing red eyes and spines protruding from its back. "Open fire!" Riker shouted as the creature charged. The team unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, but the creature was fast and resilient. It roared in fury, swiping at them with claws that could rend steel. Leora activated the portable UV light emitter, its beam focused on the creature. The bear recoiled, its flesh sizzling where the light touched it, but it quickly adapted, shielding its eyes with a mutated arm. "We need to hit it harder," Kaelen yelled, grabbing a grenade from his belt. He pulled the pin and hurled it at the creature. The explosion rocked the forest, sending debris flying and momentarily stunning the bear. "Now! Move!" Riker ordered, taking advantage of the distraction. The team sprinted past the stunned creature, their breaths ragged with exertion. As they made their way through the forest, the sounds of mutated wildlife echoed around them, a cacophony of terror that spurred them onward. Emerging from the forest, they found themselves on the outskirts of a small, abandoned town. The buildings were overgrown with mutated plants, their structures crumbling. The air was thick with spores, creating an almost surreal, dreamlike atmosphere. "We can take shelter here," Zara suggested, pointing to a sturdy-looking building. "We need to rest and regroup." They entered the building, securing the entrances and setting up a perimeter. Inside, the air was stale, but it offered a respite from the dangers outside. The team took a moment to catch their breath and tend to their wounds. Kaelen set up the data core on a portable terminal, connecting it to the system. "We need to see what's on here," he said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "This might be our only chance." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a series of complex alien schematics and data streams. Zara joined Kaelen, her expertise in xenotechnology crucial in deciphering the information. "It's incredible," Zara murmured, her eyes wide with amazement. "This technology is far beyond anything we've seen, but I think I can make sense of it." As Zara worked, the rest of the team kept watch, their eyes scanning the darkened windows for any sign of danger. The town was eerily silent, but they knew the mutated creature's car would strike at any moment. Hours passed as Zara and Kaelen pored over the data. Finally, Zara looked up, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I think I've found something. There's a way to neutralize the spores. It involves a specific frequency of UV light, much more powerful than what we've been using." Kaelen's heart raced. Can we create a device to emit this frequency? Zara nodded. Yes, but it will take time and resources. We'll need to get back to the hub and use the equipment there. Just as hope began to rise, a loud crash shattered the moment. The front of the building caved in, and the mutated bear from the forest burst through, its eyes blazing with fury. The team scrambled, weapons drawn, ready to defend their position. Hold the line, Riker commanded, firing his energy rifle at the creature. The battle was fierce. The bear's strength and resilience were terrifying, but the team fought with everything they had. Leora's UV emitter kept the creature at bay, while Riker and Silva coordinated their attacks, aiming for the creature's vulnerable spots. Kaelen and Zara worked frantically to secure the data core, knowing it was their only hope. As the bear lunged at Kaelen, Riker threw himself in its path, taking a brutal hit that sent him sprawling. "Kaelen, go!" Riker shouted, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. "Get the data core out of here." Kaelen hesitated for a moment, torn between helping his friend and completing the mission. Riker's determined gaze made the choice clear. "Move!" Riker bellowed, firing another shot at the bear. Kaelen grabbed the data core, Zara by his side, and they sprinted toward the back exit. The sounds of battle and the roars of the mutated bear echoed behind them as they burst into the open air. "We can't let his sacrifice be in vain," Zara said, her voice trembling with emotion. Kaelen nodded, steeling himself. "We won't. We'll get this back to the hub and finish what we started." As they made their way through the desolate town, the reality of their mission settled heavily on their shoulders. The mutated terrors were relentless, but they had a chance, a slim one, to turn the tide. With the data core in hand, they raced against time, driven by the hope that somewhere, amidst the chaos, lay the key to humanity's salvation. Kaelen and Zara moved swiftly through the deserted streets, their breaths coming in ragged gasps as they navigated the treacherous terrain. The data core was their beacon of hope, and they clung to it with a determination forged in the fires of desperation. Behind them, the sounds of the battle against the mutated bear faded, a haunting reminder of the sacrifice made by Captain Riker. As they approached the outskirts of Neo-Tokyo, a familiar voice crackled over their communicators. "Kaelen, Zara, do you copy?" It was Leora, her voice strained but alive. "We're here, Leora. We made it out with the data core," Kaelen replied, relief washing over him. "Good. We managed to neutralize the bear, but Riker, he didn't make it," Leora said, her voice breaking. Kaelen closed his eyes, grief momentarily overwhelming him. "We have to keep moving. Riker's sacrifice won't be in vain." They rendezvoused at a hidden entrance to the underground lab in Neo-Tokyo, a facility designed to withstand catastrophic events. The remaining team members, Kaelen, Leora, Zara, and Lieutenant Mira Silva, gathered in the sterile, brightly lit control room. The air was thick with tension and unspoken grief. Zara immediately set to work, connecting the data core to the lab's mainframe. Holographic screens flickered to life, displaying alien schematics and streams of complex data. The team watched in silence as Zara navigated the information, searching for the key to neutralizing the spores. "This is it," Zara said, her eyes scanning the alien text. "The data core contains a detailed blueprint for a device that see and emit the specific UV frequency needed to neutralize the spores, but we need specialized components to build it." Leora frowned, studying the schematics. "These components, they're not something we can just fabricate. We'll need to scavenge them from other high-tech facilities." Mira spoke up, her voice steady. "There's an abandoned military research base not far from here. It was shut down years ago, but it might have what we need." Kaelen nodded. "It's a risk we have to take. Leora, you and Zara stay here and begin preliminary work on the device. Mira and I will head to the base." As they prepared to leave, the main screen flashed with an incoming transmission. It was Director Aiden Raskin, his face drawn and eyes dark with fatigue. "Dr. Voss, we've received intelligence that confirms our worst fears. The asteroid's deflection was orchestrated by a rogue faction within our own ranks, calling themselves the New Dawn. They aim to use the alien technology to reshape humanity, at any cost." Kaelen's blood ran cold. The New Dawn? But why? Why would they do this? Raskin's expression was grim. They believe humanity needs to be purified and that the spores will force an evolutionary leap. They're using the chaos to consolidate power. We have to stop them, Kaelen. If they succeed, it will mean the end of the world as we know it. The transmission ended, leaving the team in stunned silence. The implications of the conspiracy were staggering. Their mission had just become infinitely more complex. We have no choice, Kaelen said, his voice resolute. We stop the spores, and we stop the new dawn. The journey to the abandoned military base was fraught with danger. Kaelen and Mira moved cautiously, their senses alert for any signs of mutated creatures or new dawn operatives. The landscape was a desolate wasteland, scarred by the asteroid's impact and the spread of the spores. As they approached the base, they encountered a perimeter fence, rusted but still standing. They found a breach and slipped through, navigating the overgrown grounds toward the main building. The facility loomed ahead, a monolithic structure that had once been a hub of scientific advancement. Inside, the base was a labyrinth of darkened corridors and empty rooms. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. They moved methodically, checking each room for the components they needed. In the main lab, they struck gold, shelves lined with high-tech equipment and storage units containing the precise components required for the UV device. Mira set to work, carefully extracting and packing the delicate parts. Kaelen's communicator buzzed with a priority alert. He answered, and Zara's face appeared, her expression urgent. Kaelen, we've detected a new dawn signal. They're mobilizing forces towards Neo-Tokyo. They know we have the data core. We're on our way back, Kaelen replied. Stay safe and keep working on the device. We'll hold them off. As they made their way out of the base, they encountered resistance. New Dawn operatives, heavily armed and determined, blocked their path. A fierce firefight ensued, the sound of gunfire echoing through the abandoned halls. Mira's military training was invaluable. She moved with precision, her shots finding their targets with lethal accuracy. Kaelen provided cover, his focus unyielding despite the chaos. They fought their way through, determined to return to the lab with the components. Breaking through the last line of resistance, they sprinted to their transport and sped back to Neo-Tokyo. The city loomed on the horizon, shrouded in the eerie glow of the spores. Kaelen's heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. Back at the lab, they were met with grim faces. We have everything we need, Kaelen announced, setting down the pack of components. Now we build the device and end this. The team worked tirelessly, assembling the UV emitter accord into the alien schematics. Hours blurred into each other as they labored, driven by the knowledge that time was running out. The threat of the new dawn loomed large, and the spores continued to spread. Finally, the device was complete. It stood in the center of the lab, a testament to their ingenuity and determination. Zara made the final adjustments, her fingers flying across the console. It's ready, she said, stepping back. Let's hope it works. Kaelen activated the device, its hum filling the room. A beam of intense UV light shot out, illuminating the spores in the air. The spores reacted, writhing and disintegrating under the powerful light. It's working, Leora exclaimed, relief evident in her voice. We need to deploy this on a larger scale. Before they could celebrate, the lab's security alarms blared. The New Dawn forces had arrived, breaching the perimeter and closing in on their location. We need to hold them off until we can deploy the device, Mira said, her jaw set in determination. Everyone, prepare for a fight. As the team braced for the impending assault, Kaelen felt a surge of resolve. They had come too far to fail now. With the UV emitter and their combined strength, they had a chance to turn the tide. The battle for humanity's survival had reached its climax, and the stakes had never been higher. The final confrontation with the New Dawn was imminent, and the outcome would determine the fate of the world. The assault on the lab was relentless. New Dawn forces poured into the facility, their intentions clear: seize the data core and eliminate anyone who stood in their way. Kaelen, Mira, Leora, and Zara fought with everything they had, their movements synchronized by the urgency of their mission. Explosions rocked the building, and the air was thick with the acrid scent of burning circuits and smoke. Kaelen fired his energy rifle with precision, each shot a calculated effort to protect his team and buy Zara time to complete the UV emitter's final adjustments. We can't hold them off forever, Mira shouted, her voice barely audible over the din of battle. We need to deploy the emitter now. Zara's hands moved with lightning speed, making the final connections. Almost there. Just a few more seconds. A group of New Dawn operatives burst through the doorway, their weapons blazing. Kaelen and Mira responded instantly, laying down suppressing fire. Leora activated her portable UV emitter, aiming it at the incoming spores that trailed behind the attackers, causing them to disintegrate in midair. "Done!" Zara shouted, stepping back from the emitter. "It's ready." Kaelen activated the device. The UV emitter sprang to life, sending out a powerful, focused beam of ultraviolet light. The effect was immediate and profound. The spores in the air writhed and disintegrated, and the mutated plants and creatures recoiled, their unnatural forms collapsing. The New Dawn operatives faltered, momentarily blinded and disoriented by the intense light. Mira seized the opportunity, leading a counterattack that pushed them back. "We've got to get this emitter to the space elevator," she said, her voice resolute. "It's the only way to ensure maximum coverage and stop the spores at their source." With the immediate threat neutralized, the team quickly gathered their equipment and prepared for the final leg of their journey. The ruins of the space elevator loomed on the horizon, a stark reminder of the asteroid's impact and the challenges they had yet to face. The approach to the space elevator was fraught with tension. The once magnificent structure now lay in ruins, its lower sections twisted and broken. The upper sections extended high into the atmosphere, partially obscured by clouds and spores. Kaelen led the way, the UV emitter secured on a hover sled that Zara guided with expert precision. Mira and Leora took point, scanning the area for threats. The landscape was a nightmare of mutated vegetation and debris, the air thick with a luminescent haze. "We need to get the emitter to the central control node," Zara explained as they navigated the treacherous terrain. "If we can integrate it with the elevator systems, we can amplify the UV light and spread it across the entire impact zone." As they reached the base of the space elevator, they found it heavily guarded by New Dawn operatives. The rogue faction had established a makeshift stronghold, determined to protect their investment in the alien technology. "Stealth is no longer an option," Mira said, assessing the situation. "We go in hard and fast. Leora, use your emitter to clear the spores. Zara, stay close to the device. Kaelen and I will handle the guards." The plan was simple, but the execution would be anything but. The team moved in unison, their actions coordinated and precise. Leora activated her portable emitter, creating a path through the spore-laden air. Kaelen and Mira engaged the guards, their energy rifles blazing. The battle was fierce. The New Dawn operatives were well-trained and heavily armed, but Kaelen's team had the advantage of desperation and determination. They fought their way through the outer defenses, making their way to the central control node. Zara quickly accessed the control terminal, her fingers flying over the alien interface. "I've got it," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "I'm integrating the emitter with the elevator's systems. Just keep them off me for a few more minutes." Kaelen and Mira held the line, their focus unwavering. The New Dawn forces redoubled their efforts, but the team's resolve was unbreakable. They knew that failure was not an option. As the integration neared completion, the ground shook violently. An enormous mutated creature, larger and more grotesque than anything they had encountered, emerged from the shadows. Its eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence, and its roar echoed through the ruins. "Cover Zara!" Kaelen shouted, firing at the creature. "We can't let it get to the emitter." Mira joined him, their combined firepower barely slowing the beast. Leora directed her UV light at the creature, its flesh sizzling and writhing under the intense beams. "It's done!" Zara yelled. "The emitter is online." Kaelen hit the activation switch, and the space elevator hummed to life. The UV emitter's beam intensified, spreading out through the elevator's systems and creating a massive radiant web of ultraviolet light. The spores disintegrated en masse, the mutated creatures collapsing and reverting to their original forms. The enormous creature let out a final ear-piercing roar before succumbing to the UV light, its body disintegrating into ash. The team stood in stunned silence, the immediate threat vanquished. "We did it," Kaelen said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We actually did it." The landscape around them began to clear, the spores retreating and the air becoming breathable once more. The team looked at each other, a mixture of relief and exhaustion on their faces. But their victory was short-lived. A transmission crackled through their communicators, Director Raskin's voice filled with urgency. Kaelen, the New Dawn is making a final push. They've deployed their forces to multiple key locations. We need you to hold the line until we can mobilize reinforcements. Kaelen took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. Understood, Director. We'll do whatever it takes. As they prepared for the next phase of their battle, Kaelen knew that the fight for humanity's survival was far from over. But with the UV emitter deployed and the spores in retreat, they had a chance, a slim one, but a chance nonetheless, and they would fight to the end to protect that chance, to ensure that the world they had known could be reborn from the ashes of the catastrophe. The space elevator's UV emitter, Hue, remained steadily, a beacon of hope against the encroaching darkness. The spores were in retreat, and the team's spirits lifted slightly. But the victory was fleeting. Director Raskin's urgent transmission had made it clear that the New Dawn would not give up so easily. We need to fortify our position and prepare for their next move, Kaelen said, his voice resolute. Zara, can you enhance the emitter's range? Zara nodded, already back at the terminal. I'll see what I can do. It's not designed to cover the entire planet, but I can boost its output. As Zara worked, the rest of the team spread out to secure the area. Mira and Leora set up defensive perimeters, while Kaelen monitored incoming communications. The New Dawn's forces were converging on several key locations, and it was only a matter of time before they reached the space elevator. Kaelen, we've got company, Mira called out, her voice tense. Scouts on the perimeter. Kaelen grabbed his rifle and joined Mira at the edge of their encampment. Through the scope, he saw a group of New Dawn operatives moving cautiously through the ruins. They were heavily armed and methodical, clearly experienced in urban warfare. Hold your fire, Kaelen instructed. Let's see what they're up to. The operatives moved closer, their movements coordinated and precise. Kaelen's heart pounded as he watched them approach. Suddenly, one of the operatives raised a hand, signaling the others to stop. They spread out, taking up strategic positions. This doesn't look good, Mira muttered. They're setting up for an assault. Kaelen nodded. Get ready. We can't let them take the emitter. The team braced for the attack, their nerves stretched to the breaking point. As the first shots rang out, chaos erupted. The New Dawn operatives advanced, their weapons blazing. Kaelen and Mira returned fire, their aim steady despite the onslaught. Leora used her UV emitter to keep the spores at bay, but the sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. Just as it seemed they were holding their own, an explosion rocked the ground, sending debris flying. Kaelen was thrown back, his vision blurred by the impact. Kaelen, Zara's voice cut through the haze. We've been breached. Kaelen struggled to his feet, his ears ringing. Through the smoke, he saw New Dawn operatives pouring into their position, overwhelming their defenses. In the midst of the chaos, he spotted a familiar face, one of their own, Dr. Elior Kane, standing with the enemy. Elior, what are you doing? Kaelen shouted, disbelief and anger mixing in his voice. Elior's eyes were cold and calculating. I'm doing what's necessary, Kaelen. The New Dawn has the right vision for humanity's future. The spores are the key to our evolution. Kaelen's heart sank. A traitor in their midst was the last thing they needed. You're betraying everything we've worked for. The spores are killing people, mutating everything they touch. Elior shook his head. You don't understand. This is the next step for humanity. The weak will fall and the strong will rise. It's survival of the fittest. Before Kaelen could respond, Elior raised his weapon. In that moment, the bond of trust shattered, replaced by a stark realization. They were now enemies. The fight intensified. Mira and Leora tried to hold their ground, but the New Dawn's numbers were overwhelming. Kaelen knew they couldn't win this battle, not without reinforcements. Fall back to the control room, Kaelen ordered. We need to protect the emitter. The team retreated, firing as they moved. The control room became their last stand, the UV emitter their only hope. Zara frantically worked on boosting the emitter's output, her hands flying over the controls. We don't have much time, she said, her voice strained. I need a few more minutes. Kaelen and Mira held the doorway, their rifles spitting fire at the advancing enemies. Leora used her portail emitter to keep the spores at bay, but the pressure was immense. The room shook with the force of the battle, the air thick with smoke and tension. "Kaelen, we can't hold them off much longer," Mira shouted, her voice barely audible over the din of combat. "Just a little longer," Kaelen urged, desperation creeping into his voice. "Zara, how much more time?" "Almost there," Zara replied, her fingers moving with blinding speed. As the enemy forces closed in, Elior stepped into the doorway, his weapon trained on Kaelen. "It's over, Kaelen. Surrender, and maybe I'll let your friends live." Kaelen's eyes blazed with defiance. "Never. We'll fight to the end." At that moment, Zara let out a triumphant shout. "Got it! The emitter is at full power." Kaelen turned and activated the emitter. A blinding beam of ultraviolet light burst forth, enveloping the room and spreading outward. The spores disintegrated instantly, and the New Dawn operatives recoiled, their eyes burning from the intense light. Elior shielded his eyes, rage twisting his features. "This isn't over, Kaelen. The New Dawn will prevail." Kaelen stepped forward, his rifle steady. "Not today, Elior." With a swift motion, Kaelen fired, and Elior crumpled to the ground. The remaining New Dawn forces retreated, unable to withstand the intensity of the UV light. As the dust settled, Kaelen looked around at his team. They were battered and bruised, but alive. The UV emitter had worked, driving back the spores and their enemies, but the cost had been high, and the battle was far from over. "We need to regroup," Kaelen said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "This is just the beginning. The New Dawn is still out there, and we have to stop them." The team nodded, their resolve unbroken despite the betrayal and loss. They had come too far to give up now. With the UV emitter as their weapon, and their determination as their shield, they would continue the fight for humanity's survival. The remnants of the New Dawn forces retreated into the shadows, but Kaelen knew they would return with greater ferocity. The UV emitter had bought them time, but it wasn't a permanent solution. The spores were still a threat, and the New Dawn's fanatical vision for humanity's future loomed large. "Director Raskin, we need reinforcements," Kaelen said urgently into his communicator. "The New Dawn won't stop until they've seized the emitter and spread the spores." Raskin's weary face appeared on the screen. "We're mobilizing everything we have, Kaelen. Hold your position. Help is on the way." As the team fortified their defenses around the space elevator's control room, Zara continued to optimize the UV emitter. Leora monitored the perimeter, her portable UV emitter ready to fend off any spores. Mira and Kaelen stood watch, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of the enemy. "We need to be ready for anything," Mira said, her voice a low, steady reassurance. "The New Dawn won't give up easily." Kaelen nodded, his thoughts racing. They had one chance to turn the tide. If they could hold off the New Dawn long enough for Raskin's reinforcements to arrive, they might have a chance to secure the emitter and develop a more permanent solution to the spore threat. As the sun began to set, casting an eerie glow over the ruined landscape, the first signs of the enemy's approach became evident. Shadows moved in the distance, and the faint sound of marching echoed through the air. "They're coming," Leora said, her voice tense but determined. "Everyone, get ready." The New Dawn forces advanced, their numbers bolstered by reinforcements. They moved with precision and coordination, a testament to their military training and fanatical resolve. Leading them was a new figure, a tall, imposing man with a cold, calculating gaze. "That's General Arik," Mira said, her eyes narrowing. "He's one of the New Dawn's top commanders. This won't be easy." Kaelen took a deep breath, steeling himself for the battle ahead. "We hold our ground. We protect the emitter. For humanity." The battle began with a deafening roar as the New Dawn forces opened fire. Kaelen and Mira returned fire, their energy rifles blazing. Leora directed the UV light to create a barrier against the spores, while Zara worked to keep the emitter running at peak efficiency. The fight was intense and chaotic. The New Dawn's superior numbers and tactics put the team on the defensive, but they fought with a ferocity driven by the knowledge that the fate of the world rested on their shoulders. General Arik moved through the battlefield with ruthless efficiency, his commands driving his forces forward. He seemed almost untouchable, a relentless force of nature, intent on crushing any resistance. "We need to take out Arik," Mira shouted over the din. "He's coordinating their attacks." Kaelen nodded, his mind racing. "I'll draw his attention. Mira, Leora, cover me. Zara, Keep that emitter running no matter what. Kaelen moved through the battlefield, drawing fire and creating a distraction. He could feel Eric's eyes on him, the general recognizing the threat Kaelen posed. As Kaelen fired at the New Dawn operatives, Mira and Leora provided cover, their shots precise and deadly. Eric advanced, his gaze locked on Kaelen. The two met in a brutal clash, their weapons clashing and energy crackling around them. Eric was a formidable opponent, his strength and skill evident in every move. "You're too late, Dr. Voss," Eric sneered, his voice cold and mocking. "The New Dawn will rise, and humanity will evolve." "Not while I'm still standing," Kaelen retorted, pushing back with all his strength. The battle raged on, each moment a desperate struggle for survival. As Kaelen and Eric fought, the rest of the team held their ground, fending off the relentless assault. Just as Kaelen began to falter, a blast of energy knocked Eric off balance. Mira had taken a risky shot, giving Kaelen the opening he needed. With a final determined effort, Kaelen disarmed Eric and struck him down. The general fell, his eyes wide with shock and rage. "This isn't over," he gasped, his voice fading. Kaelen stood over him, his chest heaving with exertion. "Yes, it is." With Eric down, the New Dawn forces began to falter, their coordination unraveling. Kaelen's team pressed the advantage, driving the enemy back. The UV emitter's light intensified, creating a protective barrier that pushed the spores away. As the last of the New Dawn operatives retreated, the team regrouped, their exhaustion evident but their spirits unbroken. "We did it," Zara said, her voice filled with relief. "The emitter is holding. The spores are retreating." Kaelen nodded, looking around at his team. They had fought against overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. But the battle was not without its costs. The loss of Captain Riker and the betrayal of Elior Kane weighed heavily on them all. "Raskin's reinforcements will be here soon," Kaelen said, his voice steady. "We need to secure the area and prepare for the next steps. This fight isn't over, but we've taken a crucial step towards victory." As the team worked to fortify their position and tend to their wounds, Kaelen felt a glimmer of hope. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. With the UV emitter and their determination, they had a chance to protect humanity and rebuild a future free from the threat of the spores. And as the first signs of dawn broke on the horizon, Kaelen knew they would continue to fight, no matter the cost. For in the battle for survival, hope was their most powerful weapon. The first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden light over the battered landscape. The space elevator's UV emitter continued to hum steadily, its powerful beams holding the spores at bay. Kaelen and his team had secured a temporary Vivi story, but they knew the battle was far from over. Reinforcements from Director Raskin were en route, and the team needed to hold their position until help arrived. As the morning progressed, the remnants of the New Dawn forces regrouped in the distance. Their numbers diminished, but their resolve unbroken. Kaelen could see them organizing for another assault, a final desperate attempt to seize control of the emitter. "We need to hold them off until Raskin's forces get here," Kaelen said, rallying his team. "This is our last stand. We can't let them win." Mira, Leora, and Zara nodded, their expressions resolute. Despite the exhaustion etched on their faces, they readied their weapons and fortified their defenses. The control room of the space elevator became a fortress, every entrance barricaded and every window covered. As the New Dawn forces began their advance, the team braced for the onslaught. The enemy came in waves, their attacks relentless and ferocious. Energy blasts lit up the air, and the ground shook with the force of explosions. Kaelen fought at the front lines, his rifle never still. Beside him, Mira and Leora fired with precision, their movements synchronized by months of training and combat. Zara managed the UV emitter, ensuring it continued to function at maximum capacity. "We're holding them back," Mira shouted over the din. "But we can't keep this up forever." Kaelen nodded, his mind racing. They needed to buy more time. "Zara, can you boost the emitter's output one more time?" Zara hesitated, then nodded. "It will overload the system, but it might be our only chance." "Do it," Kaelen ordered. "We need to make sure the spores don't spread any further." As Zara worked on the emitter, the battle intensified. The New Dawn forces were relentless, their attacks becoming more desperate. General Eric's defeat had demoralized them, but their fanaticism drove them forward. Just as it seemed the team would be overwhelmed, a loud roar filled the air. Kaelen looked up to see a fleet of aircraft approaching, their insignia that of the Global Defense Council. Raskin's reinforcements had arrived. The aircraft swooped down, unleashing a barrage of firepower on the New Dawn forces. Soldiers rappelled to the ground, joining the fight and pushing the enemy back. The tide was turning. Kaelen felt a surge of hope as Raskin's voice came through his communicator. "Kaelen, we're here. Hold your ground just a little longer." With the reinforcements bolstering their ranks, the team redoubled their efforts. The New Dawn forces, now outnumbered and outgunned, began to retreat. The ground was littered with the remnants of battle, but victory was within reach. In the final moments of the battle, Zara activated the overloaded UV emitter. A blinding beam of light erupted from the device, sweeping across the landscape and disintegrating the remaining spores. The mutated creatures collapsed, and the air cleared, free from the luminescent haze. The New Dawn forces, seeing their plans unravel, scattered and fled. The battle was over. As the dust settled, Kaelen looked around at his team. They were battered and bruised, but they had survived. Raskin's forces secured the area, tending to the wounded and capturing the remaining New Dawn operatives. Director Raskin approached Kaelen, his expression a mixture of relief and gratitude. "You did it, Kaelen. You held the line." Kaelen nodded, exhaustion finally catching up with him. "We couldn't have done it without your reinforcements, but this isn't just our victory, it's humanity's." Raskin looked at the UV emitter, still glowing faintly. "We'll need to study this technology and find a way to permanently neutralize the spores. But thanks to you, we have a chance." As the team regrouped and began the process of rebuilding, Kaelen took a moment to reflect on their journey. They had faced unimaginable horrors, but they had emerged stronger. The sacrifices of Captain Riker and the betrayal of Elior Kane had not been in vain. The road ahead would be long and difficult. The spores had been driven back, but the scars of their invasion would take time to heal. The New Dawn's vision for humanity had been shattered, but the threat of extremist ideologies would always loom. But in that moment, under the light of a new dawn, Kaelen felt a sense of hope. They had fought for humanity's survival and won. The world could be rebuilt, and a future free from the spores was within reach. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its light over the battered but resilient Earth, Kaelen knew they had faced the Eclipse of Eternity and emerged victorious. And with that victory, a new era of hope and possibility began. Eclipse of Eternity marked the end of one battle, but the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. And with Kaelen and his team leading the way, there was no challenge they couldn't overcome.